بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم به نستعين ونهتدي والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أفضل الخلق والمرسلين أثره نقتفي وبه نقتدي أما بعد. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum to all of you. The topic of tonight is a little bit different, is so technical. It is as follows: the Incoterms, which means the international commercial terms that are used in the context of the international business or the international trade, especially when you have sellers and buyers, but both of them do not belong to the same country, which means, for example, you have a buyer who is an importer from, for example, let's say Morocco, and the seller is in, let's say, China, for example. That seller is considered as an exporter. So you have the buyer, importer from Morocco, and you have seller, exporter from China. Okay, so those partners need to make clear the rights and obligations of each part. I mean, of the seller, the exporter, and also the importer, who is the buyer from Morocco, for example. So let's start. We have actually 11 international commercial trade, terms. So what we call them Incoterms. They are considered as a set of standardized terms and definitions used in international business or trade to specify clearly the responsibilities of buyers or importers and sellers or exporters in the transportation and delivery of goods. We have actually 11 Incoterms in total, so divided into two categories. First one, second one. So the first category for any mode of transport, because you have many modes. So you have the by sea, maritime, for example, by sea, by road, by train. It depends. So those ones are 7. We have X work, EXW. Later I'm going to explain. We have FCA, free carrier. We have CPT, carriage paid to. We have CIP, carriage insurance paid to. We have DAP, delivered at place. DPU, delivered at place unloaded. DDP, delivered duty paid. Transit agents, they know what I'm talking about, and also the people who are working. I mean, the skills. I mean, the export managers or the import managers. They know what I'm talking about. The Incoterms that are specifically for sea and inland waterway, we have 4. So 7 plus 4, we have 11 in total. So FAS, free alongside the ship. FOB, free on board. That one, I like that one. Free on board. CFR, cost and freight. CIF, cost, insurance, and freight. So let's start by the X work. We said X work, EXW. The buyer is responsible if they choose, if they agree, both of them, seller and buyers. So the importer or the buyer is responsible for delivery costs from the seller's premises, from the company or the headquarters of the seller's company abroad. FCA, as we said, which is free carrier. So the seller delivers the goods to the nominated carrier by the buyer or the importer, who becomes responsible for the delivery cost. We have FAS, free alongside the ship. So the seller delivers alongside the ship or the vessel at the agreed port of shipment. I mean, in his country, I mean, in the country of exportation. Like, for example, from China, from a Chinese port like Ningbo or Shanghai or Qingdao, for example. And here, as I said, so the seller delivers alongside the ship at the agreed port of shipment, and the buyer is responsible for the delivery cost to his final destination, for example, to Casablanca, if we have the importer from Morocco. FOB, free on board. The seller delivers on board of the ship, not free alongside the ship, no, on the board of the ship. So the container is loaded on the board of the ship. And the buyer is responsible for the delivery cost. You see, delivery cost to his final destination, which is Casablanca. I give that example so as to make things clear. So CFR, cost and freight. So the seller delivers on board the ship at the agreed port of shipment and pays for the cost of transportation to the agreed destination. You see, so the seller first delivers on board of the ship at the agreed port of shipment, I mean in his country, for example in Ningbo or Shanghai, for example, port, and then he would pay for the cost of transportation to the agreed destination, for example, to Casablanca port in Morocco. CIF. The difference between CFR and CNF and CIF is the insurance, that's it. So the seller must add the insurance fees to the cost of freight to the final destination port, like to Casablanca. He must add insurance of the container, of the goods that are inside the container. CPT, carriage paid to. So the seller here pays the cost of transportation to the agreed place of destination. The buyer is responsible for other costs, including, the customs clearance and delivery to final destination. CIP, the same thing. For the CIP, we add fees of insurance. DDP, the DAP. Seller delivers the goods to the agreed borders, but buyer, the frontiers, like for example, like maybe we have the transportation by road. So the lorry or the truck must be paid from let's say if you have two countries, like for example you have Spain and France, like let's say from Paris to Madrid. So the French exporter must deliver the goods till the borders, the frontiers with Spain. Let's say, for example, in Montpellier, near Perpignan, near the Catalan region of which is nearby, which is nearby the Catalan region of Spain. So for example, just an example. So the seller delivers the goods to the agreed borders, but the buyer is responsible for all the transportation. For all the transportation and delivery costs that remain to his final destination. Like for example, to Madrid, from the borders with France to Madrid, maybe from the San Sebastian or whatever. So, but they agree about a point of frontiers between the two countries. We have also DPU, DPU, so that Incoterm is as follows. So delivered at place and loaded. So the seller here delivers to the agreed port of destination, but still responsible for all the transportation and delivery costs. See, all of them. DDP, seller delivers the goods at agreed port of destination, but buyer is responsible for all the transportation and delivery costs. Okay, so one more time, let's repeat the Incoterms. We have two categories. The first one, any kind or mode of transportation is considered by that kind of Incoterms. We have 7. So X work, FCA, CPT, CIP, DAP, DPU, DDP. And the 4 ones that remain, they are only considered for or related to the sea transportation or inland water, like for example, for some countries like in China or the US, Canada, for example. Between the US and Canada, they have big rivers, so really big rivers. So they can use also vessels. So the vessel maybe can go through internal river and then to the sea. Sometimes we have that kind of transportation. For example, especially if you have some goods that belong to a region in mainland, and you have a river in China, for example. So they use the river. So the vessel comes through a river and then to the port of to the port of shipment. That the buyer or the importer knows, but he cannot know that region. So it comes through that river and then to the final, not to the shipping port, or to the shipping port, and then to the final destination, to Casablanca, for example. Okay, so let's go back to the other 4 that remain for Incoterms. We have FAS, FOB, CFR, and CIF. That's it. So X work, as I said, one more time, the buyer is responsible for delivery costs from the seller's premises. FCA, the seller delivers the goods to the nominated carrier by the buyer, and the buyer must make the delivery by his own cost. He must pay for the delivery cost. FAS, seller delivers free alongside the ship. FAS, so the seller delivers alongside the ship at the nominated port. At the nominated shipment port, and then the buyer is responsible for delivery cost. FOB, free on board. The seller delivers on board of the ship in the shipment port that was agreed by both parts, and the buyer is responsible for the delivery cost. For example, from Ningbo to Casablanca port. CFR, the seller delivers on board the ship at the agreed port of shipment, and then he must pay for the cost of delivery to the final destination, for example, from Ningbo to Casablanca. CIF, he must also add the insurance fees to the transport, to the freight charge. For example, from Ningbo, he must pay from Ningbo port to Casablanca port and must add the insurance. You have all, this is for the CIF. So CFR, CIF are the same almost. You have also to add the insurance fees. I'm just making the recap so as to make the fixation of the ideas and the Incoterms. And you have the CPT carriage paid too. So the seller pays the cost of transportation to the agreed place of destination, buyer is responsible for other costs, including customs clearance and delivery to the final destination. CIP, the difference is, there is no difference except the insurance fees that he must add to that operation. DAP, the seller delivers, the seller delivers the goods to the agreed borders or the frontiers. I gave the example between, for example, France and Spain. You see, but the buyer is responsible for all the transportation delivery costs from the borders, like for example, in the north of Spain to Madrid, for example. DPU, for the DPU, so delivered at place unloaded. So the seller delivers the deliver the good to the agreed port of destination, but still responsible for all transportation and delivery costs. DDP, delivered duty paid. As the seller delivers the goods at the agreed port of destination, but the buyer is responsible for all the transportation and delivery costs. So I think that I finished talking about the 11 Incoterms, the obligations and the rights of both of buyer or importer and seller or exporter. And now let's talk a little bit about the why it is so useful to know the Incoterms, why they are so important for the international business or the international trade. The first reason, the first thing is that they provide clear framework for the buyer and the sellers about rights and obligations. Number one. Number two, they prevent misunderstanding, disputes, and also unexpected costs. For example, especially, and I talked about that in one video about the techniques of negotiation, about the structure of cost and price. For example, as an importer, I'm talking about quotation. I sent an email, dear, for example, dear friend, please, or dear partner, can you please give me your best quotation, USD, for example, in US dollar. If you remain silent, then he can give you the price, the quotation X work. What does it mean, X work? X work, it means that the container is still in the warehouses of the company in China. And sometimes, not sometimes, but for sure, you have 500 km, 500 kg, 500 km, 500 kilometers of distance between the headquarters or the warehouses of the company to the shipping port that you agreed with you. Where you will load the goods inside the vessel. All the distance costs too much too much money. So, and you don't have an idea about the cost. So that's why, according to my experience, I advise the importers to negotiate the prices or the quotation of any product, FOB. This is really my favorite Incoterms. I love it. FOB, free on board. If there is an advice that the most precious advice that I can give you is that one. FOB. If you negotiate with your partner, insist on FOB, even though he gave you, for example, because some exporters they like to give, they prefer to give quotation CFR, cost and freight. The freight charge is included to your final place. No, don't accept. Insist on FOB. Like that, you have an idea about the structure of the cost. When I say FOB, it means that the container, for example, is conducted or the transportation of the container is made by a lorry or a truck to the port. From the warehouse of the company to the port, and then the lorry comes in, and they put down, the container alongside the ship, alongside the vessel or the ship, and they take the container and they must load it on the vessel, on board, free on board, on the vessel. So you get that price, especially if you have, for example, and you talk about the unit price. For example, if you negotiate something like, for example, let's say, for example, fabric by kg, for example. So the kg, you tell him, please, can you give me your best quotation, USD FOB, US dollar, FOB, the meter or the kg, 1 kg. So this is really very important, and it must be taken into consideration. And then you would tell him, please, can you give me an idea about the freight charge from for example, Ningbo port to Casablanca port? Can you give me the best quotation also of the freight charge and the shortest delivery time? Because sometimes you have to receive the goods as soon as possible. So the time is more important than money that you can save. So it depends. It's up to you to judge about that issue. And then you add the freight charge to the total amount FOB, and then you have the total CFR, cost and freight. Actually, you are going to take it CFR, but don't tell it directly from the first step. No, FOB. Then you tell him CFR. The freight charge. Then tell him, please, can you add the freight charge? And the freight charge must be prepaid by him. This must show you that the exporter has good intentions towards you, and he wants to have a lasting business. Repetitive actions, and also repetitive, operations of exportations or importation. It depends. Who are you, exporter or exporter or importer? Okay, so this is my advice. I think that I reach the end of the session. Maybe next time, I don't know if you are interested in, I can talk about the ways of payments. Banking, money, how would you pay? Is it letter of credit or a document against payments, or is transfer? So we have to think about also that kind of issue. It's really very important. Please, my message is regarding that. I would like to address my message to all of you, exporters or importers. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me and send me your comments in the box of comments, and I would be happy to answer to them. Thank you for your attention, and as usual, I will finish by the two verses that are really so important and also and dear to my heart. ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. First one. Second one. وقل اعملوا فسيرى عملكم ورسوله المؤمنون وستردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. Once again, thank you, and see you next inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.